what I'm going to do is we're going to do this oval mat, and I am in embroidery. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that my hoop is set for the 240 by 150, which it is. Okay, so I've got that done. So I'm going to go into applique. Now, applique moved, so it's kind of hidden now. You have to go to create applique, and I'm going to go and I'm going to grab a shape, and the shape I'm going to grab is a circle. And I'm just going to close that. Automatically defaults to the candle wicking stitches, but I don't want those. And with what's nice about the Epic 3 is I can actually get rid of those. So I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find another, instead of the candle wicking, I'm going to find something totally different. And there used to be in the older versions, you only had a couple of options. Well, this time, now we have more, and it will automatically fill it completely in. So the one I chose is I came in here to autofill stitches and I chose number 12, but look at all these different options we have. So I got auto 12, or that particular one selected, automatically made my circle. But now what I want to do is I need to change the size. And what I need to do is I need to go to scaling, and I'm going to make sure that this is unlocked. So if it shows that it's got a lock in the little padlock there, just select it so that it has a line through it. And the sizes I want, and the first one, I want this to be 110. So it's 150 wide, and I made it just a little bit smaller, so I made it 40 millimeters smaller. And then this is 240, so I want to again do that 40 millimeters smaller. Whoops, hit the wrong thing. And I'm going to do 200. So it automatically does all of that for me. So once I've done that, I'm going to just hit my check mark. And I now have my first step. So now what I need to do is do my stippling in here. So I'm going to select Create Sequence. And when it comes up, the stitch I want, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go over to quilting. And I'm going to pick on, I think it was, let's see my notes here. It's number 10. So I'm coming down here and I'm going to pick on number 10. You could choose anything you wanted, but the thing you have to think about is your math in order to fill that center spot. So right now it's at 53 millimeters, and I want to change it so it makes it really easy for my math brain. So I'm going to reduce that down so that it makes it just a little bit less. So it's at 50, and I want to have 3 repeats. So 1, 2, 3. So it's now at 150. I'm going to hit my check mark. And so I'm going to move this one off to my left. And I really want this to be like a negative 35. So negative 35 puts it right there at the edge. And you notice that some of this stippling kind of goes outside of my area, but that's okay. We're going to fix that here in a little bit. So the next thing I want to do is I want to duplicate it and get it here in the center. So I'm going to duplicate it. So duplicate. And I'm going to set it so it's in the center, and it's not quite big enough, and I need to edit that. So I'm just going to hold down here. Oop. I'm going to do edit and sequence, and I'm going to add one more to it. So all I have to do is hit add, check mark, and I want it in the center. It moved on me when I did this. So the other thing I want to do is I want to do some flipping, and I want it so that when this starts to stitch, this starts stitching from here to here, and this one's going to start stitching up here and come down here. But I need that to be down here so I don't get as many jumps. I'm going to come down like this, and I want it to come here and come up like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit rotate, and I'm going to hit 90 degrees twice, and it's still going to be in the center, which is okay. Then I want to do another one, but I want this guy to be duplicated over here. So I'm just going to come into layers so I make sure I get it. So trying to touch it and grab it sometimes doesn't work. I'm just going to grab that, and I'm going to hit duplicate. And I'm going to close the layers again, and I'm going to want the position on this one to now be at a positive 30. Oops, 3, 0. And it to be up and down at center point. So if you remember back in geometry or whatever it was back many years ago, you actually have a grid here, and this area here is actually going to be a negative and a positive number. This is going to be a positive and a positive number, and I'm talking about these here. This is going to be a positive and a negative, and this is going to be a negative and a negative. So it's kind of one of those things. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to flip this so that I see how this is kind of overlapping. So what I can do is just flip this so it's now pointing it the other way. And I don't care that it's coming out of here just a little bit. If I was in the software, I could do this totally different, but I'm not, so we're going to keep on going. Next thing I want to do is I want to kind of group those things so that they are actually together. And you could move them around a little bit if you wanted to. So I'm going to go to Layers, and I'm going to select this one. I'm going to select Multi-Select, and I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to group those. So whenever I move things around, those three things are going to be moving at the same time. And I'm going to close here. If I wanted to, I could actually change the colors on here. So I'm going to come in here, my color palette. And this is my applique, but I want to change the colors of these. So what I'm going to do is, again, select the first one. I'm going to do multi-select. And then I'm going to grab those two. I'm going to come up to the color wheel. And I'm not sure I really care about what it is. I'm just going to circle that around and grab OK. So now they're all blue, and so it becomes one thing when I'm going and actually stitching it out. So I'm going to close my palette. Now I need my last app, and I'm going to do this now. This is going to sound strange, but I'm going to do an applique around the outside edge. So again, I'm going to slide this over here. I'm going to do Create Applique. I'm going to do a circle again. I don't want the candle wicking, and I really only want the 2 steps of an applique. I want the first step that tells me where I need to lay fabric, and the second step to do the last part of it. But when we get to actually stitching it out, you'll see how different this is. But again, I need to make this so that it's just about as large. So I'm going to select Scale, make sure that this is not locked, and my hoop is 240 by 150. And I'm going to make this just smaller than the 150 wide. So I'm just going to go 1, 4, 8. And then on the other part, it's 240. So I'm going to make it 2, 3, 8. That's so it's not right there at the very edge of the hoop, but it is in just a little bit. And basically, I am done. So what I can do is I can actually save this if I want to. Remember, you can come out here to save. I could send design, and I could send it back to my computer if I wanted to, but I'm not going to save it. But if you wanted to, that's where you would do it at. Now, to actually stitch it out. When I come in here and I'm going to actually tell it to merge my colors. I don't want to sort them because I don't want the applique parts going at the same time. So I just want to merge my colors together. And so now I'm going to stitch it out here. Give me a sec. In the supply list, I actually told you to cut one piece that's smaller. So what you want to do is this is going to go on the back, and what I did is I just cut this, and then I turned that in under about 1/4 inch, and pressed that down. Now, if you wanted to, you could use this little steamer seam to kind of hold that in place. I didn't bother, but that's personal preference. That's the first step you're going to do. This is my other back piece that I'm going to use, and you'll understand that here in a little bit. This is the top piece that's going to be, looks like my binding around the outside edge. This is going to be my center in here, and then I have hooped my whisper web, and I have a piece of batting, so you can see this, I hope. A piece of batting here. This is my whisper web hooped. I'm just laying my piece of batting, and I'm going to lay my piece of fabric down. This is going to be my center part, and I'm going to load it. And because this happens to have a stripe, I'm kind of trying to make sure that it's going to go just right. So I have that all set and ready to go. So I'm going to stitch out step number 1 of the applique. Okay, so now that I've got step number 1 completed, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around here, and I'm going to cut all around the outside edge so that it actually is an applique. I'm not going to cut the batting, I'm just going to cut the fabric on top. Now, look, I didn't get real picky about how I cut that because that's all going to get covered up in the next step. So just so that you know, you don't have to be real fussy about that. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to skip, and we're actually going to come down to the stippling, and we're going to do the stippling part of the stitches now, so that it will stitch this, and then all those stitches that were kind of on the outside of that oval are going to now get hidden when we do that last step. So let me get that done. Okay, so now I have the stippling actually all stitched down, and you can't see that here real well, but that's okay. We're just going to hit okay. So now what I need to do is I need to add that other top piece of fabric. And what I want to do is this is the one that's going to be kind of looking like the binding. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually slice a little hole here in the center. And you'll understand why here in a minute, because it'll make it a whole lot easier. So give me a sec. So I actually have this already placed, and there's a little hole right here. And what'll happen is it'll give me a place to get in and cut the fabric. So that's why I did that. And I'm going to keep on going. Oops, forgot to tell you. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to stitch out step number 2 of that first applique. Guess I should have told you that. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to actually tack that all down for me. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to cut it. So hang on a second. Okay, so I've got step 2 of the first applique done. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to get in here, and you see that little hole that I cut in there makes it really simple. Otherwise, I had to pinch this in order to find a spot. So I'm just going to go through, and and this time I do want to get close to the edge, and I'm cutting out the inside. Isn't this going to be cool? So you can see those stitches, the part that we did at the beginning. So you see this? So we're going to cut all the way around here. So see how I've got this all cut out? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that decorative stitch all the way around this, and that's what you'll see. It's kind of what they call reverse applique, where you're cutting the inside fabric instead of the outside fabric. Okay, so that part's all stitched out. So it's actually covered all that raw edge, and it also covered, remember how those stippling stitches came up underneath, and they're actually still there. They're down there just on my batting area, or in the back part, so it's not going to show. It makes it really kind of nice. Now, I need to trim a few stitches here, but what we're going to do now is we're going to actually do the last step. So to do that, what I want to do is I'm going to take that smaller piece like this, and you notice how it's got that little folded edge here. I folded that down, and I'm going to lay that towards the top. Now, you could do it towards the bottom, too, if you wanted to. And I'm just going to lay that so that it's covering all the way up towards the top. I need to make sure that when it stitches up this way, it's going to grab it. But I'm going to lay that one down first, and it's right side down. So right side down. Then I'm going to lay this other piece of fabric, and I'm going to, and if you really wanted to, you could get really in there and actually make sure that it's lined up, because I did kind of fussy cut that a little bit. I'm not going to get that fussy about that because it's going to be on the back side and it's not going to be seen. So I have the smaller piece that I took and I just pressed a little 1/4 inch or an 1/8, something that just kind of covers up that raw edge. And then I'm going to stitch this, but I'm going to only stitch out step number 2 of the last applique. So I'm going to come down here and I don't need this one at all. I don't need it. It's not necessary. This is a nice double stitch, so it actually goes around here twice. The one thing you want to make sure is that when your machine is coming around like this, if you want to use a little tape to hold that down, you can do that. But just be aware, I sometimes use my foot pedal when I'm doing this last step so that I can actually control when it gets to that point. But it's up to you. Do how you feel fit, how you want to do it, sorry. And I'm going to go stitch that out, and I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so I'm all done stitching. This is my last step, and what I need to do is take it from my hoop, and then I'm going to take pinking shears and just cut all the way around there. So I have this all stitched with pinking shears, and I like to use the pinking shears when I'm actually going around curves, because it's kind of like doing all those little clips. Now, if you want to, you can do that, but I like to do this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my iron. I'm going to trim some of my threads. I'm going to go to my iron, and I'm going to set my seams so that they're nice, they're set in there really good, and then I'm going to flip it around. Now all I have to do is reach in here and flip this around. So I have this all turned, and I just take my fingernail and just kind of do a top stitch all the way around. I'm not going to, because it pretty much stays once I get it pressed. The other thing you can do is I tend to use steam-a-seam, and I just go in here and put that together so that there's not an opening, but you could also hand stitch that closed if you wanted to. So I hope to see some samples of what you actually